Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining here at Unapologetically Progressive. Now let's clear some things up about the previous video on Mr. Garcia. There are a few things about that case. But before we get to Mr. Garcia, let me lay some things out there for you. In the 40s, during World War II, the American military was sent to Europe to kill fascism, to take a dagger to the heart of fascism, to put an end to it. Because fascism is a terrible ideology. It's an ideology of hate. It's an ideology of thuggery. And it is antithetical to democracy and to a democratic republic. My grandfather, who I never met, fought in that war. Now, if I remember correctly, my grandfather fought in the Pacific side of the World War. So he wasn't sent to Europe. But I know people whose families had family members that went. Some of those families didn't have their family and their loved ones returned. So every time you sit there and support what Donald Trump is doing, you are supporting fascism, and therefore you are spitting on the legacy and the sacrifice that our military members gave during World War II. You are spitting on their legacy. You're spitting on their memory. I want to make that very clear. If you support what Donald Trump is doing, you are supporting fascism. One thing about fascism is the lack of due process of law. That is one major component. And that's what you are seeing here. Now, Mr. Garcia, yes, entered this country illegally, as some of you mentioned in the comments. And yeah, okay, big crime. He passed the imaginary line. Why did he cross that imaginary line? Because he was fearing for his life, because the gangs in El Salvador were targeting him and his father, threatening their lives, and threatening to force him to join the gangs by threatening his father's business. So he was sent to the United States to get away from that, so he wouldn't be a part of it, so he'd have a better chance at a normal life. That is why he came to the United States in 2011. In 2019, he was granted special immigration status by an immigration judge during the Trump administration, which is a bit telling, that he could not be removed from the country and returned to El Salvador. Now, there was a caveat, if from what I'm understanding from that order, that he could be deported, but just not back to El Salvador. Part of that, though, is for another country accepting him. So as long as the federal government did not have a place to send him other than El Salvador, they weren't allowed to deport him. The Trump administration, within the weeks after, admitted that it was an administrative error and that he was wrongly and illegally sent to this prison in El Salvador. You don't get to change that. You don't get to fabricate new stories saying he was part of a gang, right? Everybody tied to that case has made it very clear that there is nothing tying Mr. Garcia to the El Salvadorian gangs. None. He's never been charged with sex trafficking of minors, or child trafficking, or any of that stuff, as y'all were mentioning in my comments. That's absolutely disgusting. Just because a person came here illegally and you think your president can do no wrong, you want to create stories. You want to believe things what A.G. Bondi was saying in that meeting with the El Salvadorian president, right? That's what you're trying to do? They're trying to muddy the water with stuff that didn't happen. How would a federal immigration judge, under the purview of Donald J. Trump in 2019, give this man special immigration status that prevented his deportation if he had been found to be part of a gang and part of a sex trafficking ring of any kind? Any ideas? Yeah, that's right. It couldn't have happened. The two things could not have occurred at the same time. There is no way that he was both part of a gang and a sex trafficker and granted special immigration status. That wouldn't even have been able to fly during the Obama years or the Clinton years or even Joe Biden's 4 years. That would have never happened. From what I understand from the cases of his I have seen, Mr. Garcia, his only ties to the gang in El Salvador, I believe it's what is it one down there, MS-13? I can't remember what all they are anymore. There's so many different gangs and garbage like that in the world. So I don't know exactly which one it was, but from what I've read, his only connection to them was their threats of death against him and his father, and destruction of his father's business if he didn't join them, or if he didn't leave. Those are what I understand to be his connections. That's not coming from any U.S.-based news source. That's not coming from CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or Newsmax. It's coming from The Guardian and from the BBC over in the UK. Those are my sources on this case, as well as interviews directly from his lawyer. Okay? That's where I get my information. Maybe you get your stuff over at Newsmax and ONN or OWN and fucking Fox News. I don't know. But as anybody that has watched my channel for a long time knows, I do pretty good due diligence on every story that I bring you here. There's a reason that my channel at times is dark for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. Because I'm trying to find information on stories. And I don't have information, so I don't post them. It's why I didn't post this story originally. But that is what's going on here. Donald Trump and the Trump administration are trying to muddy the water, make like this guy is a terrible guy, even though they admitted that they illegally and accidentally deported him to El Salvador. Thanks for watching. I'll see you down the road.